Hello and welcome to another episode of the Tejano Traveler. I'm your host Wally, and today we are on the Texas Forest Trail at the Texas Forestry Museum in Lufkin, Texas. Now we're over here in East Texas. That means that there's going to be a lot of forest, and that meant that during the 1800s and early 1900s, that what was the livelihood of this area. If you see the forest coverings, there's the mesquite of South Texas, where I grew up, and there are the forests of East Texas. As you can see, there's an abundance of forest. And this area is also known for Angelina, who was a quasi-mystical person. Um, some people say she existed, some people say she didn't, but she was instrumental in the discovery of the area. But that's a story for another time. Right now, we're worried about the Texas forestry industry. That's a typical town, what it used to look like. It used to have a mill pond where they would float all the logs after they had been cut. But since East Texas had a lot of forests, the companies came here. Now, there were two types of companies. There were some companies that put in roots in the ground and stayed there for a while. And then there were cut and run companies that would just go in there, decimate the place, chop down all the trees, and move on to the next area. Most of these towns here in East Texas started off as mill towns. And if you come here to the Texas Forestry Museum, you can see a lot of the artifacts that they would have. Now, they use an honor system. If you marked your log, then that means wherever it ended up, that's where you were paid for, even though it ended up in somebody else's place. And these are some examples of some of the markings that would have, like cattle branding. That would be mine. But I'm always amazed at all these instruments and stuff that they use. Look at all those nooks and crannies and twists and turns and knobs and screws, and it just amazes me. Like, I'm sure everything has a purpose, but to be able to tell, I don't know. And those are examples of what they used to pay the people with, coins that you can only use in that mill town, which meant you were pretty much forced to stay because you never built up any wealth. But these mill towns were pretty popular back then. A lot of people would come here because you would get paid and you would have a job and there would be an infrastructure. If you're here, by the way, make sure to donate because it is free to enter. But if you were here, you would have to be a part of the whole business and take part in everything. And there's Smokey the Bear. I love him. But it was pretty much a way of living. And you would have your town doctors and your town school and your town parishes and everything. And this is what a typical home would have looked like back then. It was a one-room house, and you did everything in there. You had your kitchen, your living area, your stove. And this place teaches you about all that. There's a lot to read. There's a lot to find out about. That's an example of a fire lookout and Lincoln logs. Who remembers playing with these as kids? I used to love them. But if you come here, you get to experience what it was like living back then and get to appreciate what they used to do and how they started up towns and how some of these towns are still around. Now they have a little area in the back where you can go for a little hike, check out some of the trees, and get to experience a little bit more of what life in a forest mill town was like. So if you're there, make sure to stop by and check out the little hiking area. It's very informative. Plus you get to go and see some of the railroad stuff that they have. And that's a lookout tower that they would build to make sure to keep a lookout for fires. This is what a caboose looks like. Isn't it interesting? I would love to live in a caboose, but it was mostly for the conductor and stuff. But that's how they would transport a lot of their goods, a lot of their logs through either trucks or through the railroad. So the railroad was a very important part of the Texas forest industry. So here they combine both of them so you can check out how it was like back then. And once again, look at all those knobs and nooks and crannies and things. And yeah, I could never, ever even hope to be able to figure out what it all means. But I hope you enjoyed this little trip to East Texas. Make sure to click like and subscribe, and thanks for watching. Bye-bye.